Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Marketing Podcast, your source for all things marketing. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Chris Hubble on the line, and he's CEO over at Bastion DB5. Chris, welcome to the show.
Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Oh, man, so I'm excited to have you here. I know we talked about Bastion in the past we had Dax on the show. We had Shannon on the line. I'm excited to get your side of the things on the research arm, and we're going to get into automation, AI tech, what that means. But before we do, I don't want to assume that some of our new listeners caught the previous episode, so let's just start with what's going on over at Bastion. Tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
In the shortest term, it's the Australia's largest independent-owned marketing services group. And what that means is it's a collection of companies that work together as a collective in all the different arms of marketing at the moment outside of the big creative idea. So it's all of the newer tech, creative for arms of marketing. And we joined them back in November, and it's been fabulous in the almost 6 months so far.
Man, that's awesome. Love it. And I don't want to assume that everybody listening understands what that collective approach means or some of the benefits that Bastion brings to the table. So let's go a little bit further on the collective approach and what that means.
Yeah, the philosophy is that we're what you would call mid-size offerings. So there are large global companies for which there are the big holding companies with their global networks. There are millions upon millions of small shops that can help startups, but there's this sweet spot in the middle of medium-sized companies who don't necessarily have the budget or the clout of the big global companies, but they need nimble international capabilities. So the notion there is we're there to service those people, giving them global scale, while at the same time them being able to work almost directly with principals in the business and get the level of servicing and attention that they might not get with the larger conglomerates.
So let's switch it up a bit. I do want to get into what you're doing over on the research arm. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we help really in all areas of, I would say, brand strategy. So right from early product development through going to market and then communications. So we're both helping optimize existing products and find white space and opportunities based on an existing brand strengths and weaknesses. So we help right the way through that planning curve.
So let's get into some of these trends that we were talking about in the pre-show. So automation, AI tech. Where do you want to start with this one?
The impact has been huge. You could start anywhere over the last 5 years, but at an increasingly accelerating pace over the last 2 years. The switch to automation has been one of the biggest changes in our industry and changes in terms of the way we're doing things, but also changes in the way that clients are spending and where revenue dollars are flowing. There are a plethora of automated sites available directly to customers on the end. And what they're really doing is sweeping up what I would call the more commoditized side of research. So different types of research that perhaps good enough has been good enough. So creative testing is a good example. Creative testing of ads has somewhat been viewed as a necessary evil for the last 30 years. Ad agencies see it as being prescriptive and getting in the way of creativity. And clients are often doing it, for want of a better word, for cover my ass. To make sure that they're airing something that's effective. So the notion there is if good enough is good enough, why did it cost tens of thousands of dollars and take 6 weeks in the middle of the ad planning process? Exactly, when it could be done in 72 hours for a couple of $1,000s. And that is exactly what's happened. You can load your ad up now on a site that has a very good industry best practice approach, and your results come back fully charted and reported 48 hours later. So it's I think, a little scary at first when entire revenue streams were essentially drying up. But what I think it's done is move all of that commoditized work onto automation freeing up researchers to really use their brains and work on just the much bigger, more strategic, deeper pieces of research. So what is done in a backhanded way is remove all of the menial tasks and free us up to be true consultants.
I love that because it seems like, I mean, obviously most industries start off that way, right? There's some inefficiencies. You have new technology, you have new processes, and then inefficiencies come out, and then you have the ability to use that same brain power, that same workforce to then innovate and go further. Now that is, you see this transition happening, what are some of the interesting things that you're seeing coming out in terms of like innovation or things that you're noticing from your vantage point?
It's, to be honest with you, I think it's incremental because we're still at the starting point. As I said, it's the last 5 years. And the starting point is always, how do we automate what's already being done? So it has been primarily about efficiencies as opposed to new breakthrough technologies. But where we're beginning to go, as you move a lot of that stuff onto automation, data is transferred via API, you can start to link that data to other data sources. And we're at the very nascent beginnings of that. But instead of marketing research standing alone as a piece of primary research, you're now able to integrate that data with other sources. So one example would be a very common type of research is segmentation. So you go into a category such as coffee, and a client wants to know, I can't advertise to everybody, even though everybody drinks coffee, given my product is very high end, who is my ideal target? And you ask people 30 minutes worth of questions and you put them into different groups based on their responses. And one of those groups, let's say, would be coffee aficionados. It has a loose name, doesn't tell you much. Then when you want to target against that audience and you look at your primary market research, they do skew female, but 60%, so 40% are still men. They do skew younger, but 30% are still older. So when you go to media buy and try to link your market research into actionable results, your media agency will nearly always say to you, we're going to do a general adult media buy because that's the most cost-efficient way, and you'll still reach lots of those younger females, but you'll get everybody else as well. So in other words, you're back to where you started with no actionable way. But now you can link up with other databases like TransUnion, one of the big credit score companies, purchased a company called True Signal, and you're able to now run your data through their massive database that they have for 99% of U.S. households, and they will come back and say, these media buying markers, if you go with these, for 95% probability, we're hitting your target up to 20 million people. At 90% probability, we can get you 30 million. At 85% probability they're your target, we can get you 50 million. So you're now linking the market research data back into true big data, which will make it much, much more powerful. So I think that's the biggest innovation, but that's baby steps at the moment.
Man, that's exciting, though. For that being baby steps, you got to admit, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those things. I don't think market research companies are the companies to play in big data, but our data ought to be part of big data, and we're starting to get that ability to link it.
Man, that's awesome. So, Chris, if somebody's listening to this and they want more information on Bastion DB5 or to connect and learn more about the company, number one, what's the right type of companies that are usually a good fit to make sure that the right people are following up with you? Number two, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah. I think any company that starts saying things like, hey, for the first time, we're going to do a significant investment in marketing. So, compared to some of our clients like Google or Hyundai, significant in their terms might be minuscule, but for them it's a huge step. It's a huge step. What ROI are we going to get on this? This is going to come straight from our bottom line, and we need help both executing it but also understanding the impact. Those would be the sweet spot for the collective. Not that we don't work with bigger clients; those I listed are our clients, but we're, I think, a good fit in terms of how we're set up and our price point for those companies taking the leap into it. And they can obviously go to the Bastion Collective website, which is just www.bastioncollective.com. Or if it's research-based, they can come to our website, www.bastiondb5, in numeric 5.com, and there's contact info there, and you'll find when you dial the number, it'll be a CEO of one of the businesses that picks up the phone.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Chris, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about all the great work that you're doing over at Bastion DB5. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Marketing, definitely give us a subscribe there and leave us some comments in the video section. I'd love to hear what you're working on and what you have going on in your business. And Chris, thanks again for coming on the show.